Frank Sinatra said, "The best revenge is massive success." What's a real-life example of this? The guy who invented Ring cameras went on Shark Tank and was rejected by everyone. They all thought it would fail. Will you know the rest? Ron McNair had the police called on him when he was little because he was black and reading in a library. He grew up to be an astronaut, and the library he was kicked out of was later named after him. Michael has a great story about when he started out. Some big will at the network didn't like him for the role of Alex P. Keaton on Family Ties. He was too short, not cute, not heartthrob enough. You're never going to see his face on a lunchbox, but the producer cast him anyway, and the show shot to #1 and stayed there. Fox sent him a Family Ties lunchbox with his face on it, and then Back to the Future 123 lunchboxes. When Lady Gaga was in college, some of her classmates had a Facebook group called Stephanie Germanotta. You'll never be famous. Pretty sure she proved them wrong. Brendan Fraser getting the Oscar this year after being blacklisted from Hollywood for over a decade for speaking out about being sexually assaulted. Jennifer Hudson lost American Idol and became more successful than the winner. Nothing to do with the question asked, but my favorite Sinatra story is him asking a waiter what's the biggest tip he ever received. $200, Mr. Sinatra. Yeah, well here's $300. By the way, kid, who gave you a $200 tip? You, Mer Sinatra. Blockbuster laughed baby Netflix out of the room with their idea. Then later, grown-up Netflix killed Blockbuster. In the 1960s, Ford wanted to buy Ferrari. Just before they closed the deal, Ferrari slammed the door on them and let themselves be bought by Fiat. Ford, then, designed an entirely new supercar, beat Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Lemons from 1966-1969, and Ferrari hasn't won that race since against any other car manufacturer. And for the icing on the cake, 50 years later, Ford entered again after not competing since the 70s, and won again. David Tepper, after being passed on for partner multiple times at Goldman Sachs, decided to go work for himself. A few decades later, he bought his ex-boss's house John Curzini in the Hamptons for $43 million. He then proceeded to demolish the thing and put up an even more expensive mansion. Groups of guitars are on the way out. A recording executive at Decca told the Beatles in 1962, "We don't like their sound. Groups of guitars are on the way out." The TV networks who turned down showing Breaking Bad on their networks, AMC picked it up and never looked back. My ex was going to divorce me after I retired to try and get a percentage of my retirement pay. Evidently this had been a plan for a while. Her best friend sent me screenshots of her plan and I used it for my divorce. She got nothing. I'm happily married to my best friend, financially stable, with all the free time I could want. Edit a word. Harlan Ellison sent every writing award he received to one of his old professors that said he'd never be successful. My wife is always talking shit about how good she is at Candyland. When our daughter was old enough to play, we bought the game, and I won 4 games in a row. I've never done meth, but I imagine that is what that rush feels like. Italian industrialist, builder of tractors, made a mint out of it and rewarded himself with a new Ferrari. Ferrari broke down, needed a new clutch. Wealthy industrialist waited patiently for his new clutch to arrive, and after many weeks it finally showed up. Same clutch he was putting in his tractors, more than twice the price. A little bit annoyed at this, he rang Ferrari to complain. They told him go back to building tractors, leave supercars to us, and Lamborghini was born. Post Malone becoming absurdly famous for writing songs about a girl that left him. Sports commentators criticized Lamar Jackson for holding on the Ravens and said that he'd never be able to get a deal done without an agent. As of a few hours ago, he signed a new contract worth $260 million. He's now the highest paid player in NFL history. Guy in my class in middle school was always sleeping from staying up late playing Halo 2. He was really good, like travel to tournaments and win them on weekends good. The teacher said enjoy your video games now because you'll be flipping burgers for life. He bought himself and his parents' houses at 19 from YouTube streaming money. I was 13, my uncle called me an ungrateful little boy and said I will amount to nothing, be a little salty, and proceeded to push me against a door that had a nail sticking out which stuck into my back. Many years later, I completed college, worked my way to a government career, bought a home, didn't fall into the trap of having several kids and being on welfare like most of my family. He literally pushed me into success. Working on the Shrek movie was a massive punishment as executives didn't believe in it and would Shrek underperforming animators. George Lucas got the ownership of the toy rights to Star Wars because they don't think it would be successful. he made an absolute killing on those. My teachers, I had several that said I would never do anything, that my learning disability was too massive of a hindrance in graduating from grad August, with a specialty in helping special ed kids. Carol Burnett, her star placement on the Walk of Fame, or the TV executive that tried to keep her from hosting her show because variety shows is a man's job. I used to be a forensic scientist until I had to leave because of an abusive boss. I changed careers and now I make more money than he does and I am valued by my new boss and team. Tina Turner. Moved out of my abusive mother's and stepdad house at 18. Had my own apartment at 18. Bought my own house at 21. They kept telling everyone I was a drug addict. Dave Mustaine went on to have quite a career after getting fired from Metallica. Freaks and Geeks got cancelled by NBC. Judd Apatow then made it his mission to make every single teen actor on the show a massive star both in front of and behind the camera. The story of how Lamborghini was founded. Tina Turner, she got away from an abusive husband with virtually no assets and went on to become a solo superstar. We're in Taiwan that everyone is getting so worked up about, wanted to build the company in America, but a couple racist assholes didn't like the idea and passed up having the fakery built in the States. My GF cheated on me, so I dumped her and found a hotter one with a better job. My ex cheated on me with my best friend of nearly 2 decades. They both got back on drugs together despite being clean for years. I'm engaged to a great man and we have a son. She's now trying to apologize and come crawling back. Adam Sandler. Lorne Michaels fired him from SNL because he wasn't funny, I assume. Just won the Mark Twain Prize for Comedy, worth $400 million, successful movie after movie. Guy my dad went to high school with got bullied regularly by one guy in particular. Fast forward some years later and the guy not only has his own dealership but has an ad air locally. He ends the commercial with something like, "Ask for bully's name when you get here" as an ultimate disrespect. Not too long after, word gets around that bully never really did anything after graduating and blew his head off sometime after the ad aired. Adele's song "Rollin' in the Deep" when she sings "Turn My Sorrow into Treasured Gold." Also Fleetwood Mac when Stevie Nicks wrote "I'll follow you down till the sound of my voice will haunt you," and she is, almost 50 years later, still out there singing, and I'm sure Lindsay hears her. Leaving a job where my boss told me we pay you what you're worth to make 1.5x what they did 12 months later and 2x a year after that. In 1950, newly commissioned U.S. Army 2nd Lt. Arthur J. Gregg was forbidden to step foot inside the Whites-only Officers Club at Fort Lee. 73 years later, the facility bears his name. During a short, informal ceremony April 19th of this year, retired Lt. Gen. Gregg helped to unveil the revamped marquee that now welcomes visitors to the Gregg Adams Club. Oh, and Fort Lee, originally named for Confederate General Robert E. Lee, was also just renamed Fort Gregg Adams. I don't think it's massive success, it's just being happy. My high school GF cheated on me, lied to me about it, dumped me a couple days later, and fucked about 80 of my friend group, women included. The following summer I dropped 40 pounds, got a new wardrobe, and stacked my finances. She's wanted to get back with me ever since. This was a decade ago, and I have turned her down at every turn over the years. Got dumped by a girl, spent months being sad, and found out she was cheating the whole time, which sent me down further. At one point I said fuck this, went to the gym consistently, started growing myself mentally, and being a kinder man. It took a while, but my social media is now blowing up, and I secured multiple modeling gigs, and I recently started dating an actress, so that's cool. Obama dissed Trump at a correspondence dinner to his face, and Trump must have used that rage to get even. Damn, I wish Obama had picked on Ted Cruz, instead he'd never get elected. Taylor Swift rep era. In college 40 years ago, I was in a business fraternity. During Rush, we decided not to let this guy into the fraternity. It turns out he was #1 in his class and became the CEO of a large public company. We made the decision cause one person felt shunned by him. We were so stupid. Ex-wife cheated and left me to shoot dope with a loser, so I took the kids and rebuilt our life, found a better woman and better job, and I am thriving while she's homeless and in and out of jail. Probably not the greatest example per se, but I'm happy with it. Netflix, after being laughed out of the room by Blockbuster when Netflix offered to sell their company to Blockbuster for $5 million. My mom had a friend in high school. The counselor told him he'd never succeed in college. Years later, he went to her office and showed her his degree. Literally my life. I went from suicidal living in a trailer with a bad family to living alone as a wildland firefighter.